everybody. Welcome to the lovely Coleman's Theater at the Rotary Arts Center. Today I am joined by my friends over here, Phil and Jerry of the Once, to talk about a really exciting new space that they've just opened up called the Gingerbeard House Studio. Studio? Yeah.
Yeah, just Gingerbeard House. That's
Gingerbeard
good.
House.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, that's good.
That's the domain name I got.
Why is it called that?
Why is it called that? It's called that because I know it's getting less and less that as each month goes by.
Like the salt and pepper.
But it's how I identify.
Right.
It's not necessarily,
That's how you feel.
factually correct on the timeline, but it's.
Because I didn't know. I was trying to think the other day. I was like, does Phil have a beard? And then I was like, maybe it's about. Maybe it's about Barney.
Oh yeah, our kitten
Yeah.
Barney. No,
That was just a happy accident.
no.
Who also has a ginger beard.
He does have a ginger beard. He no, I don't know. I think it was just I don't know. It was something that popped in my head, and we were on tour in Europe, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." And like enough that it's it sustained itself for me for 10 seconds, which was good enough to go, "All right, I'll take that on Instagram. I'll take the .com, I'll take the .ca, and there you go." And then kind of
Get all the domains.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
mostly just to sort of like separate it from our names and anything like that, just to have it be something else. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
Cool.
a little wink and a nod to the bottom half of my head,
There you go.
because
love
someday
when
it'll be
people name
gone,
things.
right? And I want it to be
Maybe it will never be gone, though.
the bottom half of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can put it in some kind of chamber and keep it for life,
Yeah, you can.
for the rest of time.
Exactly. But now
Maybe
it's
you can
being.
have it on display here at the Arts Center.
Yeah.
There you go. That'd be very avant-garde of you.
That'd be something too, and that might be something really nice for like lower income individuals who just want to like save particular body parts, like Tupperware, to get into the the afterlife industry.
This is exactly. Yeah, no, this
I
is.
have a lot
yeah,
of
it's-
Yeah.
Tupperware at the house, and it's old stuff. And
Anything
it's really
skull-sized?
nice looking.
Will it fit
say.
this?
That part,
This
yeah,
area?
not the whole skull.
Not the
yeah.
whole skull. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Hey, look.
And that's it. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
That's well, you're memorializing a name in the very least,
Yep.
which is cool. Yeah. So I just kind of want to ask you a couple questions about it. I mean, as our viewers know, probably Phil and Jerry are in the wonderful Newfoundland band The Once, and very active members of the musical community, kind of generally. So it was really I found out about the studio probably. I don't know, maybe like less than a year ago. Scott, who I interviewed last week, was telling me that it was sort of you were doing the Rangers album at the time, and it was sort of getting on the go. But I was like, that's so cool and exciting that you guys are doing that. And, we just recorded there as well, and it was really fun. So why don't you just tell me a little bit about kind of how it came to be and the history and everything.
It's one of those things. I mean, not to speak out of turn for you, but you have been talking about.
Turn.
You've been.
It goes boop, boop, boop.
Boop.
And then boop, boop, boop.
It's like a writer's circle. Okay. Songwriter's circle. But yeah, for the last, I'd say 7 to 10 years ago, you've been talking about wanting to have some kind of a studio space and to do things. And when we lived in St. John's, we had like a little makeshift area in our living room, which, wait for all the honks to stop and then record. But now, we started when we moved to Corner Brook a few years ago. We just automatically just started, basically because we wanted to make the space in the basement, I think, in kind of a little love note to your mom, because your mom had this lovely little space down there, and it was very creative, and so now that's your what is that room called where you go in and you do all the stuff?
Control room.
I should know what that is by now. I do know what it is. But so and then we just started building, and then our plan was to do it for ourselves and to have a place for the ones to go and to do things locally and stuff. Although that means Andrew has to drive 8 hours, but whatever. But
Well, he's got Gingerbeard East happening, so we're building him a small little satellite studio in his house. So.
Just like a little orb.
Yeah, a little bubble.
one with like cats, but they're like half the size of your cats. Everything's just half size.
Yeah. It's a one bud bub. Little
Just
one bub bub.
just
baby.
bitty.
Little bitty.
He does have 2 cats though. We have 2 and he has 2, so it works.
That
We're not
really
bragging
works.
or anything. It was just like it
Yeah.
came up organically.
Be bragging
we got
a little
cats.
bit, but it's cool. You
Yeah.
know, people want to know this kind of thing.
So I think they do.
I think they
Cat
do.
people do.
The cats are actually, just for our viewers today, really fun sort of additions to the studio. 'Cause
Yeah.
they love it. They wanna sing, they wanna
Yeah.
dance, they wanna get in the guitar cases. They
Yeah.
yeah, they're a whole.
They love
it's a whole
bass.
vibe.
And so far, one of them, every time I've done any engineering and then I get to the mix phase on somebody's music, and the little one Margie, who's a very vocal little kitten, she's on everybody's. I would say I've probably put in, combined over the last 2 years, a good solid, and it's not going to seem like much, but when you think about how, I'd say about 45 minutes worth of editing out cat voice. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think she likes my voice. Every time I sing, or she really wants to duet with me, I'm not sure.
Mm.
But
could
every
duet,
time I go
maybe.
down, it's like she just gets it. One time she scratched me, like trying to get up. I don't know. I'm telling you.
She wants to be
So-
the
She's
star.
like,
She's
I want
jealous.
to be the star. Why are you sick? Listen to me. Come on, we can do this together.
She does have
Take
a really
me with
nice
you.
meow, you know, for what it's worth.
It starts off real nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after days and months and
Yeah, well, I would say on average, there's probably 8 to 1,100 meows a day
Okay, cool.
from
That's
this one cat.
8 to 1,100 or 800 to 1,100.
800 to 1,100.
Okay, yeah, so that's a lot. Because
Oh,
on an 8 day, just 8,
Yeah.
that would make the
normal.
1,100 days kind of more
Oh yeah, she
tolerable, but
doesn't dip below half a buck. She's like 800.
She's like, here we go.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she's around a lot of musical people.
She's around a lot of
Yeah.
musical people. Yeah. And oh, sorry.
Oh no, you go.
No, I got nothing.
No. You were saying, Jerry, about you mentioned the control room, and then we just sort of started talking about the cats. But can we come back to that for a sec? Because you were talking about the space and like the sort of memories of the space and sort of starting the studio. So what were you going to say about the control room?
Oh, it's just just that it was in memory of Eileen Churchill, who people around here would know very well.
Yeah.
And because that was her space to create. She was into so many things.
Expert, amazing rug hooker and sewer and knitter and stuff. And the so this was the this beautiful little warm dusty rose walled room that she had to create. So we kind of wanted to make that continue to be, you know, to not just, because she passed away a couple of years ago and didn't want to turn, you know, sometimes that stuff can happen as you're going through somebody's belongings in their life and you're trying to kind of put yours in on top of it and try and find a way to sort of line all these things up on, you know, the long shelf of life that starts with, you know, your grandparents and then their stuff and then your mom, you know, has her stuff on top of it and then it's us and then our stuff on top of it.
Yeah.
But to keep it not like a storage area, because that stuff can kind of happen, and just to make sure that it remained a creative room.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
something to kind of keep that sort of vibe going. So we knew we were starting there, and then kind of fanned out around it. And like the main tracking room now is my old bedroom from
Oh, cool.
college and stuff. You know, so it's got that kind of, and the lounge is still sort of what was the little rec room that we had, and the whole thing has kind of been soundproofed to the point, not soundproof so much as sound treated, so the whole thing is kind of a recording space, but it always kind of goes back to that one little creative physical space in that room as really, just, I mean, you're right, it really is kind of just a tribute to Mom in some ways, but also creativity in all of its forms, not necessarily having being an artist or just whatever you do that thanks whatever you do that ends up being a creative outlet in any way, even if all you do is file stuff, but you put a little bit of a flair in terms of the tabs as it comes out of the drawer, even that.
It's like expression.
Yeah,
kind of like a space of-
exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I never knew that. That's so nice. And it is for anyone watching who hasn't recorded before or been in a studio. The control room is kind of where the computers are and where you're kind of the engineers like pressing all the buttons and where the sounds are being recorded and changed, and then the rest of the studio is like where people are standing with their instruments and it's all going into the input in the control room. So it is sort of like the heart of a studio.
In the brain.
And the brain. Yeah, maybe it's the heart and the brain.
It's more like the AI brain. The actual
Yeah.
brains are in the people who are creating, of course, but
Right.
it's that sort of a little bit of kind of synergy between the human brain and the AI brain where
Yeah.
I mean with the way that recording technology is now, it can make suggestions to the human brain when the human brain gets a little bit stuck.
Yeah.
Just in terms of how the interfaces work. So it's a bit of both, and it kind of spills from one room to the other. But yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. That is sort of where it all, that's the
Magic
conduit. That's the
happens.
room that we're, the conduit between what we create in that space, and we've done that together several times now, goes into there, and then it fans out to the rest of wherever you want it to go. I mean, Scott Shepherd, for example, writing music and recording it, sending it into that little room, and then all that goes down to Tennessee and gets worked on by his friend Jared, and then drums get recorded by Maddie down there, and then that comes back to the little nerve center there and fans back out
True.
into his headphones,
Yeah.
So
that's
so
a
it
cool
really
way to
is
think
that. So
about it.
you're 100% right with that, yeah.
That's so neat. Yeah, it's cool, and it's such a beautiful space too. Like, I know that, for example, I mean, there's such a sort of loving touch put on everything down there, which I think makes sense in the context of talking about sort of the history and what you're trying to honor there. But even just like the sound panels, for example, like Steve Kane's made those, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he's trying to sort of start doing that.
Yeah.
And then you're supporting like a local artist who's, or I guess, is that. Yeah, I mean, like woodworking.
Keep going. You're onto it there.
Artist, visionary.
100%. 100%. And also that one thing that's important to us, and I think part of the reason why we wanted to have a space like this, and we wanted to have it feel a little bit like a cabin, like
Yeah,
a
it
warm,
does feel
cozy
like a cabin.
place, is because we've recorded in studios from, well, all over, Australia to Germany and across Canada, like we've been in a lot, and there are some that have a really warm vibe,
Yeah.
and there are some that are less warm, but
Colder.
colder. But it's always you're on the clock. You're
Yeah.
on the clock for money. You're on the clock for your time. Most times we're doing this, it's during a tour. There's been time. I mean, there was one time we were recording in a great one in Toronto, and we had to leave for 7 weeks to tour Europe in the middle of trying to make an album, which ended
jeez.
up being really great.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all those kind of, the bills start to pile up. So one of the things that was important to us was to have a comfortable space where you really can feel like you can, take off your shoes and lie down on the couch and really chill and listen to your music and let it come in. But also the idea of a barter system being kind of important, So there's times where Steve's a good example there of, okay, here's money for the work that you did, but then he's also a brilliant guitar player and composer himself. So some of the stuff, he helped me with the ceiling recently, and we were kind of closing in this sort of like soft canvas ceiling, and instead of sending a bill, he's trading that work for studio time.
Right. That's so nice.
So it kind of is able to, we're able to do stuff in that way. And I think that's really important too, like that idea of creativity going beyond the bounds of just what it is I have made and out that goes. A creative way to create relationships and for both people to get stuff that they need.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's really good for sort of community building as well. I mean, I know you've both spoken to me a little bit about. So last week I interviewed Scott, and we talked about the Strangers, so the younger band who are being discussed on a couple episodes here. But you were so they're their age is sort of 12 to 14, and you guys like very kindly sort of gave your time and helped record did record their EP and scheduled a day, and it was a really fun day. I was only there for a minute, but it was cool. And you're talking about how you'd love to do like an all-ages show in a space like that, that's sort of related to the studio, and expand it kind of into more of just a collective community arts sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that used to be a big thing when I was in high school and stuff. We would organize these all ages shows, and we would go to, just kind of get the space up above the curling, above the bowling alley, and do shows there. and there was a lot of bands and a lot of young people and a lot of community behind those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I think as we stay home more often, and not even just about, pandemics, just, we've kind of gone towards staying home a lot more often, staying on phones, watching streaming stuff. So a little bit of that has gone away.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we do really want to try and do. And we've got somebody in this town like Scott Shepherd, he's a conduit between so many of these things that when you look at this incredible thing that he's got built, with through his teaching and through sort of organizing and chaperoning, the strangers through their thing, and then his band ranges and bus people with you and all that kind of stuff, and all the other people that he plays with.
Yeah.
You realize that you've got all this stuff. It's like, well, why don't these things happen anymore? It's like, because there's only one or two little tiny things missing. But that's what's really required within that community. You need to build that community to realize not just what you have, but what's missing. What's that one little thing that we need?
Absolutely.
To be able to bring this stuff back and to be able to make this a bit more of a generational thing, rather than if all this stuff stays from one generation to the next. If all the people that are in bands and who are into that go off to college and leave Corner Brook, there's nothing there.
It's just gone.
It's just gone. And you have to wait until people go, geez, how come we don't do this anymore? And then it rolls back. But if you can make that a little bit intergenerational, and when I'm talking about these, it's almost like, those guys are, it might be 20 years between me and or 30 years between me and the Strangers guys, and then Scott's somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
These generations, they're not long ones.
It's like staggered, sort of decade
right?
based,
and trying to kind of keep something going so that it's more of 2 or 3 or 4 happening at one time, and then
like
we know now that the space to never leave is a full-on generational gap there.
Yeah.
Because then it might not be just a couple years till something comes out again. It might be a decade.
Yeah, it might
or
just
more.
or certain elements might get lost entirely. So.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a really nice way to look at it. And I know that, sort of in keeping with the bartering system and this sort of expansive idea of how to run a studio and how to sort of bring it into the community in this thoughtful way. I know that you've also, you've had sliding scale experiences with artists. Like you want to sort of, you're paying it forward as artists who are very established and respected here, and have been at it for a long time. You've been kind of making it easier for emerging acts to be able to record, and then sort of balancing that with more established acts that can get the big grants or what have you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is trying to show, because the music industry has really kind of fallen apart, but in some ways I think it's probably in a place where hopefully it's going to come around to a place where I think it should be, because it was so bloated in the 90s that was, it's like kind of housing bubbles that lead to financial crisis. It's like, that's not a real...
really how
that wasn't
it
real.
Can't sustain itself.
A lot of the cash from that is just the fact that people were flipping collections of music to CDs.
Yeah.
That's
true.
And it's not really like an honest representation of it. And I think that idea of bringing in the barter is showing that there's a different value on what you can do as an artist or a musician, and hopefully trying to get that in heads really young, to not feel like money is the barrier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have money, I can't make an album. And the amount of times I've heard that people who had great songs, they didn't end up, something fell through, they weren't able to get a grant, or they didn't have any money, and then they decided not to do it at all.
I know it's really can be
And
really
it's
sad.
so tragic
Yeah.
that this thing, you know, like, and not to go too far on it, but I really do. I mean, I have very little respect for money as a thing.
Me too.
Very little.
Yeah, yeah,
It
absolutely.
it yields, when I see good things happen with what we're trying to do here, I see it as, you know, good things coming from community or barter or just being like, you know what? The couple of bucks I'm going to get for this isn't really worth. I'm not even going to worry about it. Let's just do it. And
Yeah.
and I hear conversations down there, and you can tell that there's more fuel, and there's more positivity
Mm-hmm.
and good vibes that come from not having it be monetary.
Totally, and not having this like, oh, I'm here for, it's $50 an hour. Like
Yeah.
I have to rush. It's, it is a very warm and inviting space, and that's so nice. That's a really nice approach. I think that it's a beautiful thing to have in Corner Brook and a community generally, and I absolutely agree with you. I think
Good.
that yeah,
Good.
it's good. You better.
I just find it kind of unfortunate that, you know, we all, like, we've been Music NL members for a while,
Yeah,
and knowing how much money ends up going into that to be able to make records,
yeah,
and then you put that up against the amount of Newfoundland artists who've gone out and done really well, it's embarrassing. And anybody with a big ton of money should be super, super embarrassed by how much people at the bottom who are creating the art have managed to do for Newfoundland, for music, for the tourism industry,
Yeah.
with very little help from very, 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 very rich individuals.
right.
So the thing is to go like, okay, go ahead and take credit, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if that money's not going to trickle down and be helpful, then let's not pretend like it's as important as it is. Because obviously if we're able to do it without it,
Yeah,
well, then we should be really honest about why that's happening, you know?
totally. Yeah,
Strangers are happening because their parents realize the value in music.
mm-hmm.
They're able to get them some lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Even without that, those of us who understand that that infrastructure is difficult for a lot of other kids, we will bypass it and we will do our best within this to find them anyway
Yes, exactly.
and make them,
and advocate
make
for
it-
them, kind of,
and
make
advocate
it
for them.
possible. Yeah, and it is like just recording music is a very elaborate process, and a lot of musicians, first coming into it. Like I remember the first time I recorded, I thought it would take one day. I was like, oh yeah, sure, I have time to do this. It's 9, and We'll be done by 4.
oh yeah.
And
yeah.
they were like, I was like, I don't know why it's expensive,
Yeah,
but
like-
sure, I'll do
yeah.
it today. Yeah. And then they were like, yeah, you're gonna be doing this for 6 months, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like why? I
Yeah.
thought you just had to press record, and it's so complicated.
And sometimes you
like,
can.
Sometimes
you
yeah,
can
it's
just
live
press
off the
record.
floor or
Sure.
yeah, what have you. But
Sure, yeah.
it's funny. I did want to ask you kind of 2 more things. And one of them being, yeah, I mean, we've talked about the strangers a bit. Can you tell us, me, and our friends, maybe just like a couple of names of artists that you've been working with and plans, within your ability to expose that information. I don't know if anyone's keeping it under wraps.
No, God, not at all. I mean, we've done some kind of interesting ones over the last little bit. We do a bit of work with Alan Doyle, who's
Nice.
a really one of the most solid dudes.
Yeah, he's a
ever.
sweetheart.
And what he spreads around in terms of love and opportunities is really something special.
Totally.
He's really, truly a real special guy. So we've done stuff with him. Yeah, and just weird stuff that comes up because of
We've worked.
come from away. Like that's something that
That's cool.
that musical, and we've engineered a couple of songs for that. Sherman Downey.
Sure, yeah. We've worked with a fella in Australia,
Oh, Jack Carty.
Jack Carty, and we did all that online, obviously.
Oh yeah, nice.
And that was really fun. And yeah, but honestly, when it's so funny to think about the studio space, because I think I was trying to get to here before, but we started going, I would like for us to have a space where we can do stuff for us. And then when pandemic did happen, it was like, we were thinking about the community as well, but then it was like, now we need to push this. The ceiling is not done.
Yeah.
The walls are not torn down. You know what I mean? Like we worked so really hard to push things forward very quickly. And because we're all in this little space together and everybody was in their own little, with their computer and trying to do this thing. I mean, you've even helped people with video online. And so
Oh yeah, it's become a heavy
yeah,
thing.
we're about to record online. Like we
Right,
have
yeah.
so in a lot of ways we're in this little tiny space in our basement,
Mm-hmm.
but we've opened ourselves up to the world.
Yeah.
There's
Totally.
nothing that we can't do anymore. So and there's no one that we wouldn't be able to work with. And I don't know, I think it's incredibly exciting.
The benefits of being in a small town without the limitations.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right,
I
you
mean,
can
it's all
have
globalized.
Truly, and especially now where there's so much less money in the industry for everybody.
Yeah.
You can really look at any album that you absolutely love, look at who produced it, contact that person, and if you're in Corner Brook, come by that place, track your music there, and send it off to that person. They can produce you from a distance. You can have all of that
Whoa,
stuff.
yeah.
You know, like so
That's
these
crazy to
these are
think
the
about.
sorts of things that, and you know, unfortunately or fortunately, this is the kind of stuff that we do need to do now. And in some ways, maybe that's better.
Yeah.
You know, instead of telling somebody that like to make their album, they need to have $100,000 and go to LA and rent an Airbnb for 2 months and you know
Yeah.
that sort of stuff,
Absolutely, yeah.
which is wrong.
Yeah. And-
I mean, it might be a great way to go for certain individuals, and there might be certain things that somebody's looking out of that experience that they want, but it's not required.
No,
You
for
don't need
sure.
it, you know.
And there's also something really cool, I think, when you talk about these artists you've been working with. I know you've also been working with, like, The Proper Things, and then we mentioned The Strangers and The Rangers, and Bus People, we just did some stuff there. And so The Proper Things are from Corner Brook as well. So there's a lot of sort of West Coast music happening, too. And there's something cool about having this ability to extend into, like, globally, but also have this affiliation with these artists who might not have that reach yet, and sort of combine. I mean, it's not really combining those things together, but it's like if someone's like, oh, this producer and this studio, I really like this that came out of here. Now I'm seeing these other artists. It's kind of a roundabout, interesting way for exposure for those artists too.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yeah,
good
yeah.
for like it's really it is sort of it does sort of transcend geography, but it also does something that's really beneficial for like exactly where we are
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
is cool.
yeah.
We had a young fella call us up. He wanted to pop in, Mitch. And he's
Mitch Matthews.
he's living like off the grid out in Clarenville somewhere.
Yeah, off-grid cabin.
Yeah, and he said, I just want to come in and lay down some demos. And it was like, he just showed up one day and we're like, everything's like wiped down in the whole pandemic thing. He came in and like in 2 days, did like something like
18.
18 demos.
Oh my
And
God.
now he'll probably pop, I mean, incredible. I mean, such a well-read, beautiful human.
Wow, cool.
So, and he stayed at the house.
Oh,
Which
that's so
is like,
nice.
we had this room for him, so we're like, you stay there. And he read the whole time. We had these amazing conversations, and that's what this is all about. Not everybody has to stay at the house.
Yeah.
But if there is a need for it, we're definitely, as long as they can handle cats.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
and I mean,
sweet.
this is
That's
also
really nice.
something like a lot of the sound paneling from the panels that Steve helped build.
Mhm.
Those ones, he's the material themselves were passed on from Scott, handed to him by Mike McDonald. So Louis and Mike McDonald, who are West Coast legends, and
Totally.
used to play like 300 nights a year back when that was a possible thing to do in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
All came from their studio. So there was a studio there before.
Right.
These things have been here, but it's just
Oh, and that adds to the feel.
that adds to the
It's
feel,
like
you know,
totally.
that sort of
smarter. I feel like I could play piano now.
yeah.
Yeah, the like,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, the energy kind of
Yeah.
like it carries
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
That's so cool. The
But as you're
magic of
saying,
it.
like the recognition of like those are West Coast guys who had this sort of thing happening before, and a lot of it is just trying to, like, we're not creating anything out of scratch here. This has always been, the barter system, whether it's conscious or whether you realize afterwards you just recorded a record for somebody, and they don't actually have any money. You figure something out, what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like any of these are new concepts. But I think the idea of going in with that and having that be something that is a little bit maybe a slightly different West Coast Newfoundland identity.
Yeah.
You know, that there are other ways of doing it, and rather than it just being like a Corner Brook thing, a servicing West Coast kind of idea.
Exactly. Yeah. There's
You know?
there's such like, I mean, Newfoundland as a whole has such a rich sort of cultural, creative reality, but there's something very special about the West Coast too, in sort of its expression, and it doesn't really get, you know, as much attention generally than the East Coast, of course, because St. John's is a lot bigger. But it is, you know, I think things get lumped into just like of Newfoundland, but there are defining elements of the West Coast that do feel different than the East Coast, that do also inform people's creativity. So
Yeah, and not just having it be. Sorry, I didn't mean to snatch it, but not just having it be. Because I just got excited about what you said, like the idea of it not just being, you know, well, there's the St. John's music community,
yeah,
and then there's the Corner Brook music community. To us, it's a lot more interesting that it's the West Coast arts community, the stuff that goes on in Woody Point, writers,
Totally.
poets, textiles, like
Yeah.
all of this sort of stuff, wanting to be more included in that, because, you know, once you sort of fan it out into that, instead of just being, you know, a handful of bands and a couple people who've been writing songs and want to get them out there, all of a sudden now we're a little part of thousands of people in the area who are all doing different things. Because whenever there are festivals, like writers at Woody Point,
yeah,
you know, pairing a writer with a musician, you know, so
Totally.
that stuff is already happening, and then you go upstairs and it's everybody creating things with textiles and
Yeah.
visual arts and stuff,
It's super
and
cool.
and saying like, well, if all these things are happening together anyway, trying to sort of shift it all in your mind and identifying more as an artist, and what that means, not just like a, you know, an artist in terms of the creation of music, but an artist in
Totally.
terms of the creation of art.
yeah, that's a
everything
really
is
nice.
put together. Yeah, I love it.
Totally. And that's like, you know, that's very community oriented too. There's just like this sense of sort of, that is sort of a bartering system as well. There's a very strong sense of people learning different crafts from each other here, in part from that, you know, reality and that sort
Aley
of.
Johnston,
Yeah.
right? Like her, if you look at her artwork and you look at the titles of the pieces of art, the water, I mean, thinking mostly of watercolors that she's done.
Yeah.
They're the
names?
title of it is the names of songs of people from
That she
here who've
would
made albums
listen
that
to.
she listens to while she creates it.
Cool. That's so awesome.
So when you
So
see that
cool.
and go like, oh my God, it's all fueling
Yeah.
one another.
Yeah.
You know, making that more of a spoken thing and more of a way to identify, you know, as a West Coast artist. You know,
Totally.
right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
That's the
That's what we're
plan.
trying.
That's the
Yeah.
dream. That's the dream. We're making it. You're making it happen.
Should have thought longer about gingerbread houses. It's you know, maybe something that kind of. But I think that was, you know, to go back to that, it really was like a joke, but the idea of like building something fun
Yeah.
that you can consume.
Yeah.
You know, gingerbread.
Oh, nice. Right. I was like, you
Ginger
can't
beard.
consume a beard safely,
No,
but
no.
right. No. Yeah. No. I get it. Yeah. It's good. Love it.
Didn't think
Do you
very
guys?
long. I think when I said we were touring in Europe, it might have been
Have you ever eaten a ball of
Amsterdam. It might
hair?
have been in that.
Yeah, this summer music festival.
We eat balls of hair every day. Those cats.
They love it.
Shed.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all
Every
all
time you
connected.
every time you hit the kick, and Barney's lying down in front of it, you just see the hair shoot
Yeah,
across
just
the
this
room.
little. I've seen it. It's a beautiful thing to see. Do you guys have any last things you want to like say, or you know, plug, or you know, anything at all?
No.
Kinda.
Not necessarily. Just if you find yourself wanting a place to create, just give us a call at www. No.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How can people
Yeah.
get in
Well, I
touch if they want to?
suppose, you
Actually, that's a
know,
good.
I feel like if you go on our Facebook page with Phil Churchill or Geraldine Hollett, you're going to get us. Because I don't think Gingerbeard House is on Facebook, is it? It's on Instagram.
I don't know. I haven't been on
Instagram.
Facebook. It's such a.
Everything's
I don't
been
even
happening
know.
so organically. We haven't really done a whole lot with
Yeah.
socials yet.
Mm.
We haven't really, you know, because there was a whole plan to have, you know, bands in and playing, and then pandemic kind of shagged that all
Of course,
that
yeah.
up, and having like audiences coming with food and stuff from local areas. So that'll start picking up. But yeah, if there's anybody that's interested, if there's anyone, especially in the community, that feels like they have something that they want to lay down, they don't really have a lot of money, we'll figure it out.
Oh,
So
that's so sweet.
If you got money too, that's cool too. Because, you know, money does make the world go round, but you know what I mean.
Well, there's a trickle down from it. If you've got it, it generally gets passed on to someone who doesn't.
Yes.
In terms of time.
Right, exactly. That's
know?
kind of the when
You
you're
can pay to
talking
keep the
about
studio
that.
running, then it's much easier to say to somebody else who doesn't have it, look, don't sweat it. Someone else had a bigger grant.
Exactly. It's
But
I
you,
mean,
you mentioned that before, you know. Like
yeah, that's a generative sort of mode. So it's like, you know, you don't necessarily want to get a bunch of calls from a bunch of people who have a lot of money saying, "Oh, it's a free studio," but what you do want is like
Yeah.
people who are like,
Yeah.
you know, to pay it forward in the same way. It's very it's a very copacetic kind of thoughtful way to approach a recording studio. So I think it's really cool. Thank you so
trying.
much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Um,
And thanks for you coming in to record it. I got to say,
too.
Bus People has been one of the absolute joys
oh,
for
thank
us.
you.
The music is incredible. And just how it started, Scott and I were talking the other night about the fact that, like,
All the things we talk about. What can I
well, no, but I don't want to go like too far down. I think it started in a conversation, not to get too, but the idea of, you know, how something small or ends up fueling something larger. Now it started in a relatively, it wasn't a super positive start to it. It was kind of like Spotify takes all these artists and gives them all, you know, a platform to play.
Oh, right, yeah.
No money, and then gives it all to
Joe Rogan.
this one guy,
Yeah.
gives him $100 million. It's like, well, we made all that money, right? And then
Yeah.
we were talking about the Bus People keyboard, about like a lovely thing of starting with nothing that ends up turning into this thing. This little tiny Yamaha.
Like a $50 Porta Sound.
But you guys
Yeah.
wasn't it a found thing? Like it was by a dumpster
It was
or
found
something?
by a friend of Scott's next to a dumpster.
Yeah. And turning that into stuff, to me, even bringing that story in, you know, and that reality of that, and then hearing the music that's coming from it is is very on, you know, not to sound like a knob, but is on brand
Yeah.
for you know what we're trying to do, right? So it's a perfect kind of,
It's been really
you know,
fun.
perfect
yeah,
note to
It's
to
been
what
fun
that
to
is.
give that tiny little keyboard the stage in that way too, and just put it into this like fancy machine with all this other stuff. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
like,
and you
oh,
can't even
look,
plug it
money.
in. Like you pick it up
You
and
can't
it
even
rattles
plug it
around
in, it
because the
rattles.
input, the AC jack is broken, so it only runs on batteries.
I know. It's
Which
really
at the same time, you know, at first I was like, oh, that's kind of limiting. We can't plug it in. And then I thought, no, it can't be tethered.
yeah, it can't be tethered. It's a
can-
lone
it
wolf.
can
in
go
this
anywhere
world.
in the world. You know,
Yeah.
it will give you something. You know, on the dark night when the skidoo dies and you're freezing to death, and you've still
It's
like
there.
the batteries
It's
are still
gonna
running.
work.
All right, it's
yeah,
still
it's
gonna
gonna
work.
be the last thing, the last note that rings out.
The last part of this.
It's like,
Yeah,
maybe we can we'll put it in post. We'll put it in.
yeah.
Um,
I hope it makes its way into the album artwork. in
Oh,
some
me
way,
too. Well,
like
it will.
some little
It's just a
aspect of
video.
it.
Yeah,
Special.
we'll get it in there for sure. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day, and thanks to our viewers as well, and thanks, Brad. Cool. Bye.
Bye.
Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.